Welcome to Dice and Mind, a podcast hosted by Brad Brown and Jason Kaufman to explore the intersection of life, games, science, music, philosophy, and creativity through interviews with leading creatives. All are welcome in this space.
Usually when we do our outros, we do like a little teaser or anything like that. But we've had Magnus on now for part one. We've to break the air quote fourth wall. We've already recorded our
Wait, we've
interview
never
with
done
him.
that before.
Yeah, I never done that before. So I'm just going to come out and say it. This is going to be I think a fascinating episode for those that are like in like the RPG industry overseas and how it interacts with in the US.
And we do actually have listeners around the world. Not
Yes.
not many, but we look at our metrics, at our analytics, I should say, and so we've been very curious, right? Like, what does RPG look like? What does the industry look like? What does the player look like? All of this stuff. I'm being
Yeah.
inarticulate here, but probably because we've been talking for the past 15 minutes before I pressed record.
Yeah, we had a lot to catch up on because
We
things have been
did.
busy for the past
Yeah.
couple of weeks. But
Yep.
but ultimately, um, is as fascinating and interesting and awesome a discussion as I expected it to be. It did
Yep.
not let me down by any stretch.
No. Though we assume that Magnus was fairly disappointed with both of us, but we get
Of
that a
course. I mean,
lot. Yeah.
but we get used to we're used to that through
Take a
marriages and everything
number.
else. Yeah, yeah.
But
Get in
but
line.
so with excuse me, so this is part two of our two-parter with Magnus Seter. So with part one, and you couldn't be there for that at the very last minute. So I was especially pleased about having part two because you
Yes.
two had a chance to meet and to talk, and unsurprisingly, right, hit it off. And especially because he's such an interesting, accomplished, well-versed creator. I mean, really, like from a global perspective, which is so neat. Part
Yes.
one, just to recap, and I apologize, I didn't mean to cut you off. Though I've been
No.
doing it for 30 years.
Yeah.
For part one, um, we got into Magnus's background, his experiences, all of that good stuff that we care about, and just touched on, uh, what's it look like? What do tabletop role-playing games look like in their history in Sweden? Just touched on it at the end, and after I clicked stop on the recording. I thanked Magnus, and he was like, we need to do this again. There needs to be a part two. You had asked me to
Part three.
talk.
Oh, you're
Well, no,
talking
no,
about
no,
the
no. Last
previous.
time, right? But thanks
Yeah.
for giving me that away already. There needs to be a part two because you had asked me to come talk about what role-playing games look like in Sweden, and we never really got there. And so that's what now we get to share with all of you and that Brad and I have so been looking forward to. And yes, as you said, why don't you talk about part three? Although that's in development. We haven't narrowed it down entirely.
We haven't narrowed it down, but well, why don't we talk about the potential part three after the interview? Because it gives away a mini topic that we
Yeah,
didn't
fair.
judge on.
Okay,
Um,
that'll make more sense. That's true.
and ultimately, um, what's it's just I've been fascinated by like Northern Europe and Scandinavian gaming and all that.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, because of like the horror gaming Vossen and things like that,
Uh-huh.
all these games, and we get into that discussion about
Yeah,
horror
we
gaming
should
and
actually we should stop because
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm gonna
yeah,
go.
see we're
Okay.
doing it. We're
Yeah.
getting into the content of the discussion. Okay, so we're going
Yes.
to transition over to part two with Magnus, where I think legitimate to say where he guides us and all of you, dear listeners, through a deep dive of the not so much the history, but the current landscape of RPGs in Sweden and Europe more broadly. I think it's fair to say, Brad, you and I learned a lot
A
a
lot.
lot during this discussion. So let's go over there. Magnus Seter is an award-winning educational writer and game designer, and a founder of the Yellow Hand Creative Collective. He is a well-known figure in the Swedish RPG industry, both as an avid gamer and as an accomplished creator. Magnus started playing role-playing games in 1982 with the very first version of Drakar och Demoner. Because of this, he began tapping away at the family typewriter, writing extra rules and adventures for his own gaming group, and shamelessly copying the style of the trailblazers of the day. Immersing himself in the hobby, Magnus soon discovered other RPGs such as Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Cthulhu, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and Cyberpunk.
So as we begin part two, this is actually kind of my part one because I didn't get a chance to chat with
That's
Monica
right.
the last time. So I'm actually excited to be able to join for this segment of it. And I'm really fascinated because I was very ignorant of um, the gaming world and the gaming ecosystem in Europe and Northern Europe and Scandinavia. And I had spent a lot of time for work up in like Sweden, Finland, Norway in the middle
Oh,
part of
okay.
the last decade. And um, I had been, I have friends up there and they had alluded to there being the case, but at the time I wasn't really gaming. And then I got introduced to Free League, the Free
Mhm.
League. And then I realized, oh, there's a pretty robust like gaming history and all of that that rivals like anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's fascinating to me. And I'll be honest with you, I am fascinated by like the genres of gaming, not even mechanics, of course, but like the richness of the stories that they that are there for
Mm-hmm.
gaming. Just the whole stories of all that. It's just so fascinating to me because I think I hate much like a lot of things that we hear. I think we are sometimes Amerocentric, if I
Oh yeah.
could make up a word, around what we think the gaming world, where it came from, and what they don't realize is that it's more apparent to me now than ever. And I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah.
diatribing and we have a guest, but it's more apparent to me now than ever of how much even our games here in the States now
Have been
have been
influenced by.
influenced
Yeah. And
by,
we did talk about that a little
yeah,
bit in part one,
Yeah,
but
a
not
little
a
bit.
whole
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
No, no.
yeah,
Yeah. But you're absolutely right. That's also like Jason we talked about last time that's why I wrote the book Outside the Box
Hmm.
to sort of just document in an English language book that there is a role-playing scene somewhere else where Dungeons and Dragons isn't the dominant game. And give a brief history of that. I didn't go in the book. I don't go in as much into play styles and things like that. But still, it's like you say, Brad. It's a thriving microcosm, if you like that, of games that have evolved, sort of like parallel to the American gaming history, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Hmm.
And it's very important for me to be upfront with the fact that uh, Dungeons and Dragons did start the Swedish role-playing uh,
Right.
wonder, the not the revolution, but it was this spark that ignited the hobby was Dungeons and
Mm.
Dragons because
Yeah.
that's what people brought in 77, 78 and
Mm.
started playing at conventions, and then those people, some of them started looking into making a Swedish role-playing game, and in 1982 Dragonbane first edition was released, and that's sort of the second start of the Swedish hobby. And from that grew this rich uh, tapestry of different Swedish role-playing games and translated
Mm.
American games. For example, we have translations of Star Wars D6. We have translation of we translated MERP
Interesting.
and Chill, of course, Chill. The horror game from Magnus Seter as well. So we can't decouple ourselves from the American gaming scene completely and just say that we did our own thing.
Right. Right.
Even though I would like to have to say that and say, "Oh, we were so rebel. We forged our own path through the jungle of role playing games." But it was sort of like a symbiosis
Yeah.
of between the things. But what happened in Sweden was that Dungeons and Dragons was never the dominant game.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And
I mean,
and
oh, go
it's so
ahead.
apparent now how the game, how use the term like a symbiotic relationship between the ecosystems. You can just see in so many games out there the DNA of what games from Europe and Scandinavia and all that have brought the richness of what they've brought to American games. I think there's been a huge benefit to that.
Mhm.
And you can actually see it just in, I think you can even see it in the iterations of like D&D over the years.
Oh yes.
The influence of those.
Hmm.
Independent of other games, of new games that have come out that have obviously been enriched by, even going back to like 4X board games, which obviously originated in Europe and all of that. Those heavy duty, you know, Twilight Imperium-esque
Yep.
type board games.
Hmm.
I actually
Um,
see it in the art as much as anything.
yeah,
I mean, like you and I have talked about that, Brad. Not eruditely, but like the art out of like Free and things like that, where you see that filtering back here in a really positive way. I think affecting how RPG art is done, right? Pulling it
yeah,
out of the strictly D&D and Paizo approaches to the
Hmm.
art in the books.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's interesting as well because it much like the American games, role-playing games, the early Swedish role-playing games were quite simple compared to games today. Um, Clear layout, of course, but more akin to travel early travelers like text, white pages, some illustrations here and there,
Yeah.
and in the 2000s, well, 1995 going on,
Hmm.
like when Mutant Chronicles was released, Swedish producers went all in on the graphics, the images, the layout, the design, and that was picked up in the 2000s by the newcomers who sort of took the torch from the grappled the torch from the old geezers like me and started doing new stuff. And they also put a lot of effort into making it look good, look nice. Not, and I think that's sort of like a reaction also because since it sort of started in 1982, that power, that energy that was inherent in the format of role-playing games could carry it 10, 15 years. But after that, you didn't want to see another simple two column layout with black text on white
Right.
pages. You wanted something
Right.
else.
Hmm.
And we did then look at TSR, for example, with their lavish second edition stuff and the covers. Mostly the covers by Elmore and Easley and Parkinson.
Yeah.
And we sort of thought that, well, we can do this. And also it's also been the case that Sweden has a very vibrant computer game development ecosystem. Paradox, for example, and some other companies, and they sort of, at least this is my theory, and I have to just add this at the beginning, sort of in the beginning here, that everything I say here is my opinion, and I have people that I discuss with on my
Oops.
role playing forum that are vehemently against what I'm saying. It's like, no, you're wrong about everything. So if someone else would have a different take, but I think at least some of this comes down to computer game developers picking up role-playing gamers as designers and also role-playing designers as artists,
Interesting.
concept artists.
Okay.
And the art of creating concept art has sort of like grown into its own thing because the computers, computer graphics. So you could find Swedish artists that rivaled easily Elmore,
Hmm. Hmm.
Parkinson on a good day, and that made it a lot easier to have the games look brilliant. And also one of the prominent illustrators, Peter Bergting, during the 90s and also during the early 2000s.
Mhm.
He's a comic book artist working with Dark Horse and Mike Mignola now. So he was extremely influential in setting a style, and that style was so good that he sort of worked hard, of course, but also got picked up by Dark Horse. As so a lot of things sort of like convened into to uh, putting a lot of talent into a pool of available artists and writers and people like that. As like Jason, what we talked about last time, I think I mentioned it, but when I
Right.
started writing, there were you had to type the stuff onto a paper,
Yep.
and then you would send it in, and you would get it back after a week or two, with read things that you wanted to
Yep.
change and everything, and that's sort of like a threshold that not many people sort of cleared. Insane people like me, for example, we did that because we were sort of insane, but
Mhm.
but that meant that the pool of writers, for example, in Sweden during the 80s was kind of limited.
Yeah.
And it expanded as the computers expanded, the computer use expanded in Sweden. It became easier and easier for sort of everyone to be a writer, a designer, and also an artist. You could
Hmm.
do layout, you could find
Yep.
someone to do the art, or you did your art yourself, and you could write. And Sweden is a very technologically developed country as well.
Hmm.
So we had this initiative where you got you got not grants, but you got uh, computers basically.
Yeah.
You could buy computers for a cheaper price
Okay.
through your employer, which meant that
Okay.
it was a thing
Oh,
that the government did to
Wow.
sort of like get computers out into the
Yeah.
society because we realized early in Sweden that okay, we need people to have computers because in the
Interesting.
future there has to be computers
Right.
in
Right.
every home should
Everywhere.
have a computer. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that pushed it. And we also had some of the most successful internet companies during the IT boom.
Right.
And they disappeared during the bust, of course. But
Hmm.
still, the technology sort of also helped us to become a, a place where you could find talent to make a really good looking game, which was also very well written. And it's also a question in Sweden is that we didn't have the amount of Dragonbane had a downturn, so it wasn't as dominant in Sweden as Dungeons and Dragons has always been in the States, apart
Hmm.
from the couple of months where Vampire and also after 4E when Pathfinder
Yeah.
took the crown. But still, it's people were more inclined to do their own thing
Hmm.
instead of just doing Dungeons and Dragons the right way.
Yeah.
Because there's so many Dungeons and Dragons heartbreakers, but we don't really have that in Sweden where we have Dragonbane heartbreakers.
Hmm.
We have some really good um, adaptions, or what do you call it? Sort of like when you do your own stuff,
Oh yeah.
a version of it.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
that was while it was not being published
Yeah.
or wasn't really published at a large scale, then
Hmm.
people made their own cover version of Dragonbane, and we have some very good implementations of basic role playing there. Uh, yeah, sorry.
No, no, that's
no,
it's
no.
really interesting. So just
Okay.
to pivot for a moment. So, we're talking about creativity, creation, design,
Hmm.
writing,
Hmm.
all that. Uh, let's pivot for a moment. Talk about production. I'm curious
Yep.
about this, especially like, right, because we are approaching the middle of 2026. Who knows what's going to happen in a few days, much less a few months or a few years with everything
Mm.
going on in the world.
Yep.
I'm curious to the extent of your like familiarity with it. So one thing we hear from other friends in the RPG industry here in the States with states as well as British companies is if from production standpoint they are having seems like just about everybody is having their books printed these days in Eastern Europe Maybe China. Certainly, like tokens or anything are probably
Mm,
coming out of China.
yeah,
Obviously, here in the States, as our country, I'm just going to be blunt, as our country continues to go off the rails, that between the tariffs and the
mm,
challenges, it's been delaying
yeah.
shipment. It's making the whole thing corporately more difficult. I'm curious, in Sweden given the relative proximity, but also, that it's EU. I think Sweden's still Schengen, isn't it? I mean, it's part of the history. Where do most of the Swedish companies where are they having their things actually produced? And is that an issue in terms of distribution, in terms of getting into players' hands?
No, basically, we print them and now my grasp of the English language is a bit rudimentary here, but
That's all
because
right.
it's either Lithuania
Right.
the other L,
Oh,
Lithuania
Latvia.
or Latvia. It's one of
Okay.
those.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's just over the pond, not over the pond as in the Atlantic, but
Right.
it's just you take a ferry and it takes a couple of hours
Right.
or maybe for 6 8 hours to just
Mm-hmm.
ship things to
Mm-hmm.
us from there because
Okay.
the scale of Europe is
Mm-hmm.
big, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not
No.
the scale of the States.
Right.
So if we have a printer in another country, that
Mm-hmm.
might be closer to us than the printer in another state for you.
Yeah, absolutely true. Absolutely
So
true.
so we will probably just continue using them and
Mm-hmm.
almost everyone printing, producing role-playing games in Sweden know each other, or they
Yeah.
know someone who knows someone.
Okay.
We share experiences with these printers, and some have
Neat.
very good experiences with some printers, and some have
Mm-hmm.
some bad experiences with those printers. But we sort of learn how to handle all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also since a lot of the printing, it's not what we were saying about sort of like graphically demanding
Right.
products. Um, I don't have the Merkborg books here now, but I think they were printed somewhere in Lithuania or Latvia.
Sure.
Um, and they are extremely demanding books to print.
Okay.
They have a lot of colors that need to be fixed, and Merkborg had luminescent spine and
Right.
a lot of stuff that goes into
Mm-hmm.
that, which means that the printers also, of course, are happy because they get to do something that is not just printing a
Yeah.
standard book. Bam, bam, bam.
Right.
So they learn and we learn, and we we can we can sort of well that sort of like turns the quality of all our books up
Right. Right.
bit by bit
Yeah, because it's
because we can
developing
share
this.
experience.
Yeah, and it's developing the capabilities, the skill sets of those printers as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and the skill sets of us as customers,
Yeah.
clients
Right.
to them, so that we know, okay, if we want to do this, we need to be able to order this. We need to know what a
Mm-hmm.
font is. We need to know what this is. We need to know what this. We need to learn a lot about the production of the products, and since there are so many very minor role-playing producers in Sweden.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who sort of like get to know this because if there were like one or two big pu publishers in Sweden, we would only have two or three people who knew all this. But now we have 10, 10 small outfits doing stuff. So we have 10, 20 people knowing everything, and they we meet at conventions and we share experiences because
Yeah. That's really
it's
neat.
easy to say that. And it's true to a large extent that Swedish role-playing games abroad is Free League
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's what it is. I mean, they've got
Yeah.
Alien, they've got Blade Runner,
Right.
uh, and
Big
that
IPs.
big
They
IPs,
picked
and
out a
and
lot of them.
yeah, exactly, and they've done bang up jobs with everything,
Mm-hmm.
and they keep on doing. They have the One Ring,
Yeah. Right.
and they sort of struck out also with Dragonbane. That was an unexpected success abroad, but still they have these big things. So they are a big outfit. But apart from that, Swedish outfits are two, three people.
Wow. Oh, okay. So I guess that does kind of open it for another question. Well, in my mind, it's related. Your mileage may vary here. But so obviously, a number of these games, most of these games, they're being written for a Swedish audience, first and foremost. A number of them are clearly also being written with an American audience in mind in terms of English. I'm curious, what is your sense or what is your experience with either translating into other languages or simply um, trying to get these into other markets across Europe? Are there other hotspots where Swedish games are being purchased and played beyond Sweden and the States?
France, Spain, Poland, Germany are
Interesting.
big
Okay.
markets for Swedish
Really?
games, and that's that. But basically, that's where Italy, of course, Italy, of course, as
Well, I
well.
mean, you say of course, but we have no idea.
Okay, no,
Yeah.
and so that's and they pick up the free league games, and just as an illustration to that is that when the One Ring
Hmm.
changed publisher from
Yeah.
Cubicle 7 to Free League.
Yeah.
The story around that was that they were shopping around for a new publisher, and
Mhm.
Francesco Nepitello, who's the main man behind the One Ring, that they sort of looked around and okay, we found a good publisher that we want to go with.
Yeah.
But he was like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And he was playing Forbidden Lands, which is a fantasy game released by Free League. It's one of their minor games, one of their
Hmm.
small games.
Hmm.
Forbidden Lands. It has a few books and it's a fancy world. And he'd been playing that and was really impressed with the game design philosophy of Free League. So he spoke to them at a convention, and they sort of got together and spoke. And it turns out that Francesco Nepitello, from his Italian viewpoint, found that the Swedish design philosophy demonstrated by Free League fit like hand in glove with his
Wow.
philosophy.
Okay.
So that's why they actually as I don't know which publisher it was, but they said, well, this was a big publisher. Everyone knows who it is, and they just ditched that publisher and went with Free League instead.
Interesting.
Because they felt
Interesting.
that it's the philosophy was basically the same, and the One Ring has travel rules. It has a lot of sort of fiddly bits in between downtime and stuff like that, and that's something that Free League also has a lot of in their games. Like they try to not just have dungeon delving, they try to have go adventuring, but you also have travel rules, base building, and things like that. Just to reiterate that then of course Great Britain. I don't know how big we are. We have the Effect podcast, which is a really good podcast if you want to know about Swedish games. Actually, they're based in England, and
Oh,
then we have British, of course, Spanish, French, Italian,
yep.
German, and Polish. But Polish is also a big market for Call of Cthulhu
Oh, interesting.
or
Okay.
Chaosium.
Really?
So Poland has Chaosium now has two people, Dara and I forget his name, working for them full
Uh-huh.
time,
Wow.
and they're sort of based in Poland, and they've been working with a lot with foreign translations of games. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay was translated into Polish as well, so
Hmm.
it's not a uniquely Swedish thing that our
Yeah.
games end up in Poland, but it's more of a Poland is a very strong market for role-playing games and translations.
So this is neat. So I was with my brother and one of my nephews. I was in Krakow
Hmm.
uh
Hmm.
a couple years ago. And He was there for work. I was tagging along to travel. And I mean, it was wonderful, wonderful city. But we went back. We spent a couple evenings for supper at the Vilcekdova, the Grey Wolf pub, which is this tavern that's under the street. And it's all fashioned after, what is it? Stitcher? Is that the game?
We, uh,
It- I might be wrong about that.
no, no, no. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just go ahead. Continue.
I'd never played the game before. And I
Are
think
you
it
thinking about Witcher?
Witcher, thank you. Yeah,
Witcher.
it
Okay. Yep.
tells you. Yeah,
What did you call it? I
Stitcher.
gotta.
Don't
Stitcher.
ask.
Okay,
I
okay.
was traveling up until I got
You
home
heard it
last
here
night.
first.
So,
Magnet is my witness. Magnus is my witness. I have new
Yeah.
material to make
yeah,
fun of
yeah.
Jason
I don't
about
know.
later.
I'd
So,
never. Okay,
yeah.
I'd never played the game. I'd never
Yep.
played the computer game. I'd never watched the series. It was when we found it, I thought, oh, it's a D&D tavern.
Oh
It
yes.
but because I mean, like I went into it ignorant, and then their website was um Polish and English, and so was
Mhm.
the menu, which was actually, Brad, this is where the leather-bound journal I gave you
I
came
have it.
from.
I have it in
Yeah.
my office. Yes.
The
Oh, cool.
menus were leather-bound journals on parchment, and
Oh, okay.
everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it was completely in world. But
Yeah.
I've wondered about that since there was I didn't have, well, we had a little time, but I never found like an RPG shop while I was there, and it wasn't we were seeing all the history.
Mhm. Mhm.
To be able to support something like that,
Yeah.
and it was also, I mean, it was phenomenal food, right? Like the best
Mhm.
pierogi I've ever had, even better than
Oh,
up at the square. But it was just very cool to see that because it was so immersive and always busy and clearly gaming, right?
mhm.
Inspired from start to
Yeah.
finish. So to hear
Yeah.
this is really interesting. It kind of helps me to see the picture.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, we have a sort of like a streak of medievalism in Sweden as well. We have a medieval week every year in Gotland, where, in an old town there, and we also have a Viking restaurant in tavern in Stockholm, which you should next time you come to Stockholm, you should visit there.
Yeah,
But so we are also very close to a lot of the source material for role-playing games. Like
right.
the Dungeons and
Yes.
Dragons inspiration
Hmm.
is so I have my offices in the old town of Stockholm.
Oh, wow.
So every time I walk to my office, I walk through uh, I walk by houses that are 5, 6, 800 years
It's
old.
incredible.
Maybe there's a restaurant there that's been since the 1700s
Wow, wow.
in Stockholm,
We
running
in the
continuously.
States just can't fathom that
No,
because there's
exactly.
just nothing here
Yeah,
that I mean I
that's why we
guess
travel. Yeah.
in certain parts of the East you can get to the
Yeah, but
1700s, but very rarely.
not like
Yeah,
that.
No.
no.
So we are sort of like very close to the source material, which
Right.
I think also shines through, at least in the Swedish role-playing games, and I think in French as well.
Hmm.
I'm not
Hmm.
that familiar with German, even though Das Schwarze Auge is huge in the dark eye
Okay.
in Germany and Austria, and it's an AD&D clone variant.
Interesting.
I haven't read it, but still,
Okay.
it's huge. So Dungeons and Dragons wasn't the biggest in
Yeah.
Germany or Austria either, because that was the Schwarze Auge, the Dark Eye, which was Dungeons and Dragons AD&D
Hmm.
copy,
Hmm.
I think,
Hmm.
levels and escalating hit points and spell levels and stuff like that. So, but I don't know how close to they are to German sources like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But if we go outside of Sweden, we go to Great Britain,
Hmm.
we can see that for example, Games Workshop, when they created the Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay
Warhammer.
game, they really sat down and said, okay, so if we don't want the pseudo historical Wild West fantasy of Dungeons and Dragons, what could we do then? Well,
Yeah.
we'll go back to the medieval ages and the in Europe, and
Hmm.
we'll
Hmm.
make games about that, which gives it a different vibe
Right.
uh, from the Dungeons and Dragons uh, genre of role-playing games.
Yeah.
Not as popular.
Right.
Dungeons and Dragons is popular for a reason, and that's accessibility and first mover advantage, of course, and a huge market. But also, it's sort of like it's a fast-paced game that people can pick up, and it's easy to grasp the basics of it when it
Hmm.
comes to okay,
Hmm.
you go adventuring because you're adventurous, and wow,
Right.
yeah, great. Whereas if you want to get into Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, for example, it's a different beast. You just sort of have to be more into culture gaming than if you want to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And
It's my
like I
opinion.
know
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair.
Warhammer has kind of like that, I know like Warhammer 40,000 and all that has that
Oh, yeah.
fantasy type of vibe. Um,
Mhm.
what should, is there, obviously there are games over there that, Free League obviously has them, they have American IP like Blade Runner and things like that,
Yeah.
um,
Huge.
but, um, you know, is there, do you, just from your experience looking over here and being over there, like sci-fi gaming, is there like,
Good question.
like over here you have Traveler, which, came out in the late 70s, which is kind of like,
Still going strong.
heavy duty.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. You have Paizo came out with Starfinder.
yep.
Hmm.
You have all these different type of sci-fantasy or sci-fi games. Do you see that there being like a similar market over there, or is it kind of different in Europe and in Scandinavia than it is here in the States?
Well, we have Coriolis, which is the free league
Okay.
game, which is
Right.
big, which was huge. The thing there.
Okay.
Um, I always I always view science fiction games as the kind of role-playing games that a lot of us want to play, but we never get to play because most people want to play fantasy. And I
That's
think
interesting.
it's the same
Yeah.
here in Europe, or at least in Sweden, that science fiction is cool for one-offs or for special groups, but for groups that
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
that sort of like
Right.
that they want that kind of experience. But the big
Right.
thing here is still fantasy. I mean, we have
Hmm.
Free
Okay.
League has The One Ring, Forbidden Lands,
Yeah.
Symbaroum, Dragonbane.
Man.
That's four fantasy games from the same publisher in Sweden.
Right.
What,
Yeah.
and of course, they have Alien and Blade Runner and
Right.
Coriolis,
Right.
but still, Alien and Blade Runner are strong, of course, because Free League has done a splendid job with
Right.
the games, but also because of the
Right.
huge IP.
Right.
And Coriolis is their own thing, uh, but it's not as big as the fancy thing.
Okay.
We in Sweden, at least, we go more into the horror genre than I would
Okay.
rank fantasy as the most popular, then
Yeah.
horror, then
Okay.
science fiction. Uh,
Interesting.
and I, I think I don't know how strong the horror genre, because it's difficult to talk about the horror genre in America. I think for me at least,
Yeah.
because of Call of Cthulhu, because Call of
Yeah.
Cthulhu is its own genre,
Fair.
sort of. Whereas
Yeah.
in Sweden we have Cult, we have a Swedish version of Call of Cthulhu now, but we also have a lot of several minor horror games, and we have some really small
Okay.
indie horror games that are sort of grounded in Swedish indie experimental game design. For
Okay.
example, The Birch Witch, which was written by Pelle Nilsson, which was the game he wrote before he wrote Mörkborg. And
Okay.
I think it's only been published in Swedish. I think they've been working on their translation for a while. But if you do Mörkborg, you sort of have to focus your attention to that game as well. But still, it's also a question of, I think that in Sweden at least, and Great Britain maybe, and maybe more so in Europe than in the States, that we lace our fantasy with horror.
Hmm.
I think that's
Uh,
definitely true here as well. But to
yep.
your point, like Call of Cthulhu, and Brad, you're way closer to this. You're way more knowledgeable than I am. But my sense is Call of Cthulhu has become extremely popular here in the States. Just everything Lovecraftian, ignoring his terrible bio.
Yeah.
Everything like Call
Yeah.
of Cthulhu and its iterations, very, very popular. I don't know, Brad. I don't see much horror here, which is funny because, you can make a horror movie in the United States and it'll do well no matter how dumb it is.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
in terms of the
you
games,
have
like
you have Eldritch
Masquerade,
horror.
yeah, but
You have
not
Eldritch horror. You had the werewolf and vampire games from
Oh
White
yes, of
Wolf.
course. Yeah.
right. But that's
But
about it,
but
and even Eldritch, isn't that fairly Lovecraftian?
Oh yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I would
So,
argue there, and I would argue, and I come from a place, I'll admit, from a real place of ignorance on this. I don't think and they're good games, but they don't have the same horror vibe that I feel like European Scandinavian horror games. Those are like really more horror
Hmm.
games,
right,
Yeah.
because like
whereas
Lovecraftian isn't, it's that's different.
yeah, it's just a
It's
different vibe.
Yeah, I
And
don't know that
so
we have the real horror here. I
I
really
I
not on
know
a
it's
big scale.
horror,
Mm-mm.
but my personal opinion, caveat, your mileage may vary, but I just feel like it's just a very different, you know,
Hmm.
Call of Cthulhu now you've got so many different iterations. There's a lot of different companies out there that have used the
Yeah.
Cthulhu, the
Oh yeah.
the
Yeah.
open Cthulhu
Right.
license to create,
Right.
you know, World War II Cthulhu
Oh yes.
or the Roman
Yes.
Yes.
Cthulhu
Yes.
or
Yeah.
Cthulhu Cahos.
so,
I think that to your point that is that we have a bookstore in Stockholm which is called the Science Fiction Bookstore, uh, Science Fiction Bokhandeln in Swedish, and they sell role-playing games because some of the people running the shop
That's neat.
were role-playing game designers. So
Oh
so
wow.
they carry role-playing games
cool.
even though it's not a very
I
good
like this
business for
place
them.
already. Yeah.
But also is that you can get anything Cthulhu in there,
Oh. Mm.
because it's like you say, Brad, it's sort of like grown from being just a horror
Yeah.
brand to being a nerd brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
And
good
I
way to put it.
say that with a sort
Hmm.
of sneer in my voice,
Yeah.
which wasn't intentional,
Yeah.
but it's I have a Cthulhu plushie at home. Well, here in my house.
Case in
Uh,
point.
oh, yeah, I have that. Well,
Right.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And I think
great.
that when I walked into and I sort of could buy a cute
Right. Right.
Cthulhu plushie,
Yeah.
I felt that okay, maybe the horror
Might have gone mainstream.
element it may have gone
Yeah.
mainstream.
Right.
Maybe this horror isn't really that much horror. It's
Yeah. Nothing
it's
says
something.
mainstream nothing says just hardcore horror like a plushie, right?
Exactly.
Something
Well,
you can take to bed with you, right? Like give your
Yeah.
child, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Jason and I haven't talked about it. Obviously, here in the States,
That's hilarious.
Star Wars kind
Never
of
heard of it.
kickstarted the
Yeah.
sci-fi thing
Yeah.
in for the 20th and 21st century.
Well,
My son and I
strongly
went to see,
disagree, but that's another conversation.
okay, well, I know
Okay.
it could be
Yeah.
Star Trek,
But
but
it's huge. No,
we
no,
won't.
no, no, no. I wasn't going there. Did you guys see
It's
Mandalorian and
nighttime.
Grogu?
No,
It's
I
night.
haven't yet.
Yes, we did. It's
Don't say
nighttime, and I don't
anything.
want to put Magnus
Don't
to
say
sleep
anything.
by going down that path.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I
But
love. I'm
ultimately,
a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I
okay,
grew up on Star Wars. I was one of
Yep.
the hardcore
yeah.
Star Wars fans in Sweden at the time.
Oh,
So
nice.
we went and saw
Gonna have to have
Mandalorian
you
and
back for the
Grogu.
third time. That's its own
Yes,
Yeah,
conversation. My
yes.
God.
yes. Well, they had a movie preview. There was movies here in the States called Despicable Me, and they came out with and in
Oh,
that movie
yeah.
there were these characters called the Minions, which are
Right.
these little
Yes,
yellow
yes.
characters.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, there's a new Minions movie coming out, Minions and Monsters.
Oh God.
And in that they conjured a monster, and it was they were conjuring Cthulhu.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Okay.
Except Cthulhu didn't come out as Cthulhu. He came out as this cuddly, to what you were just
No,
talking about,
okay, the plush. Yeah.
Yeah.
this cuddly
Oh
little
my God.
plushy looking thing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So he's Cthulhu has become I this is a bad way to put it, a caricature of the
Yeah.
original Cthulhu.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, so devil's advocate. So this is interesting. So let's bring this full circle. Especially like in part one, Magnus, you and I talked a lot about D&D and its influence, strong and weak in Sweden historically. I think we could argue the same thing globally, certainly here in the States in terms of D&D. Like you think of original D&D, you think of AD&D, really all the way up until maybe 5e. And now, you can purchase D&D in almost any flavor that you want. Almost any if you want a little right, if you want a little more Cthulhu, they have a
Mhm.
book for you. If you want sci fantasy, they have a book for you. If you want
Yeah.
young adult,
Mhm.
I know I would now, don't get me wrong, I really thoroughly enjoy playing D&D. So I'll put that out there. Like you said, it's accessible, it's fun, it can be fast paced. Some
Mhm.
of their books, like I think things like The Sword Coast, they're just wonderful books to even just sit down and read. That said, like D&D has become anything to anybody at this point, right? You can have it as hardcore or as soft and plushy as you want. And
Mhm.
it doesn't, whether you want, Celtic or Viking or Southeast Asian, South American, they probably have a variant in which you can play. And
Yep.
it's in a lot of ways it's fundamentally different and it's certainly changed, from where
Mhm.
it was, just like Cthulhu has evolved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. An interesting point there is like the next Ravenloft book will include Cthulhu and Innsmouth, I think. So,
Sweet.
but also it's also uh, to that point is that yes, Dungeons and Dragons has something for everyone, but uh, cult will never have acceptance as a Dungeons and Dragons thing because cult is so much more Clive Barker horror than
Right. Right.
any person would allow to be associated with the Dungeons and Dragons brand. And
Right.
I think that's okay. That's totally
Yeah.
okay because it
Absolutely.
doesn't have to be totally everything. And I
Hmm.
remember when the D20 license was first released, the fears were that everything would become Dungeons and Dragons, everything would become D20, and that was, of course, the purpose of the license and
Right.
the SRD,
Right.
SRD and
It did
everything like
not
that.
work.
And it didn't work that way. It did work in a way that was beneficial to the hobby, which I
Right.
think was a secondary uh, goal for Dancy and Adkison. But it didn't destroy all other role-playing games as we know them.
No.
Today we see a plethora of different
Hmm.
gaming systems
Hmm.
and everyone has their, not everyone, but many have their own systems. And one might argue that's because Wizards of the Coast did the thing with 4E where they did a strange license thing before caving
Yep.
on that, and
Yep.
because of the strange things they did a couple of years ago with
Absolutely.
so people sort of realized that they can't be dependent on a license from Dungeons and Dragons, but from the Wizards of the Coast. But
Right.
still, if you want commercial success, if you want the biggest chances of commercial success in the States, and
Hmm.
you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but then you do something that is compatible with 5e.
Yeah. Without question, you are absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
But
Yeah.
there's a reason everything's been converted here to a 5e variant if you want to play
yep.
it. Yeah.
But in Europe, you don't.
Yeah, that's so
And
interesting.
that's
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because people here want to make their own things,
Hmm.
or if um, they don't want to use the license because of the legal charades
Well,
that Wizards had.
that's right.
Whatever, but still, it's we have a lot of different systems. If you look at Free League, for example, they also publish other uh, game creators, and
Mm-hmm.
two is it Two Blind Mice that it's Italians who do Outgunned and some sort of adventure the 20s Roaring
Hmm.
Twenties game as
Okay.
well. I can't remember the name of it. And they are publishing something that is some sort of um, uh, Link computer game. It's
Hmm.
a Japanese
Interesting.
fantasy, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
And we have lots
Oh,
and lots and lots of different systems
yeah.
to choose from, and Dungeons and Dragons isn't,
Yeah.
as far as I know,
Mhm.
the main choice for everyone. It is strong, and
Yep.
it became stronger when third edition was released.
Yeah.
And fourth edition actually brought in a lot of Swedish gamers who felt that this was a very solidly designed game,
Hmm.
who didn't care about Dungeons and Dragons, but they cared about
Right.
the game.
Hmm.
And they felt that, okay, this is a game that does what it says on the tin. and it does it well enough that we'd like to play it. So strangely enough, in Sweden at least, fourth edition Dungeons and Dragons was one way of convincing people who didn't play Dungeons and Dragons normally to play Dungeons and Dragons.
That is funny.
And then fifth edition came and go back to roots, people sort of drifted back to that game. So it's
Yeah.
big in Sweden. It's
Yeah.
a big seller, and people talk about it quite a lot, but still not as much as the
Mhm.
homegrown games.
I think it's a very good thing that there continues to be consistent innovation and diversity of games, of gaming systems beyond D&D. It makes for a much better,
Yes.
richer landscape for everybody to play in, to dream in. And even with there's not a good word in English for this, even with the mess of the D&D 5e open gaming
Yep,
license,
yeah,
when
that was a
they
mess.
when I mean, but again, it's Wizards at this point. It was highly corporate, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah,
reality.
oh yeah,
And so, how do you do something that's ethically open and still makes you money? You really don't. It doesn't quite work like that. But
Right.
but the outcome of that, I think, Magnus, is really congruent with what you're saying, that after that mess, so many of the other game companies opened or partially opened their gaming systems, their mechanics that help to, whether it's the D20
hmm,
or the 2D20 or any of these others, where the narrative dice were within tolerance, other creators were allowed to use the mechanic in their own world. It gave us tools, right?
yeah,
People could now innovate and find a fit
mhm,
mechanically that
yep,
wasn't there before. And so like long term, it's not even that long ago, but longer term, the outcome I think has been really wonderful to your point that it really like Paizo immediately responding with, okay, we're opening our stuff and we're doing it correctly and we're creating, I don't know if it's how well it's really caught
Yeah.
on, but we're
mm,
creating now a legal platform where anyone can be part of this and we're just going to try to play by the same rules. No pun intended. I mean, right, specific examples being irrelevant. I think just the fact that now someone who wants to create, whether it's a system or a source book, or just wants to play, do this for their own table, they can now access these things so readily, and then maybe actually publish them, right? Or even create companies around them. I think that's really
yeah,
lovely.
oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Brad, we're talking over you.
He's
No, no, no.
typically not
That's
this
a
quiet. I've been listening to
no,
him
no.
for more than 30 years, and it's just been
No.
incessant.
I am so I to be honest with you, I'm soaking this up because I don't get an opportunity. I've been fascinated. Jason knows this. I've been fascinated by like the European game market, going back to my days of following, you mentioned it earlier, Paradox Interactive and
Hmm.
playing
Yeah.
Europa Universalis
Yeah,
and Hearts
yeah,
of Iron and all of those games early on when Paradox actually had their own, at one point, had their own Steam competitor,
oh yes,
their
yes.
own gaming platform. I remember
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Well,
And
you've been
so,
Paradox
and
talking about
then
Free
Paradox
League and
Plaza, I think it
oh,
was.
yeah,
oh.
and I had that, and I had all sorts of the computer games, and I still do. I actually run on my Mac. I run like a DOS and Windows
Oh,
emulator, so I
okay,
can still
yeah,
play them on my Mac.
yep.
Um, and then when I got into then when I found Free League, and then I
You've been talking
found
about Free League since we got back into gaming 10 years ago.
Okay,
yeah,
that's cool.
I've just been
Cool.
I've been fascinated by the European gaming, and then spending time, like I said, um, and Jason knows this. The software company I worked for about 10, yeah, it was about 10 years ago, was based out of Helsinki, but
Yep. Yep.
Oh,
spent a lot of time in Stockholm, a lot of time in Oslo, and a lot of time in Helsinki, and then some in Denmark. And um, I personally loved it over there. If I had the opportunity, I don't right now, but if I had the opportunity to move there, I would, um, and live over there just because I love it. But I'm just fascinated by the gaming market, and I am just fascinated by the logistics of how we have been positively influenced. Our
Hmm.
games have been positively influenced by just the intricacies and the richness and the complexity. I'm reiterating what I said at the beginning of the podcast
Yeah,
of
but it's good. That's
you've
good.
provided, you know.
I think it's a when you said that in the beginning, I was thinking of one way of putting the differences in role-playing games and role-playing sort of like philosophy maybe is to look at what I'm not I don't know how much board games you play,
Yeah. You a
but
little bit, Brad. Yeah.
are you familiar with the Eurotrash and the Ameritrash and the Eurogamer things,
A
the
little bit,
genres?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Ameritrash has fancy flight games,
Oh,
boxes,
okay.
Yep.
huge boxes with miniatures and cards and stories and it's complicated and a lot of moving parts and it's often co-op and it's
That's Jason,
lavish games.
that's Twilight Imperium.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
He's
And then
talking
we have
Twilight.
and
Hmm.
then we have Euro games, which are more mathematically sort of like Settlers of Catan and Agricola and
Hmm.
things that are more mechanically involved.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And I, I think that when I started saying this, I was sort of like, well, because the Euro games are equivalent to the European role-playing games. But then I sort of realized that the Eurotrash games, Ameritrash games, are very much more about bringing out a story, which is much more European in its approach
That's a good
than
point.
the sort of like cold mechanic Eurogamer approach when it comes to role-playing games. Because you can play a lot of Euro gamer board games. You don't really have to get into being a farmer in Germany during the 1600s because it's down to mathematics. It's down to moving pieces and fixing things like that. Whereas in America, board games from at least Ameritrash board games are more involved in story and more
That
involved
makes
in
sense.
in the characters. And that's how I see the European role-playing games are much more involved in story and character and plot.
Oh,
And whereas
Okay.
America, strange enough, then in America they are more folk. Yes, exactly. It's turned the other
yeah.
way around.
That's
It's
interesting.
more focused on mechanics. It's like you have to have 200 feats. You have to be able to go up to 20 levels and then super levels after that, epic levels, and then you have to have this kind of things. And you have to have this and it's much more about an interlocking gaming system, which is extremely complicated. Whereas in Europe, it's more like, well, here's a system, and whoops, what happened here? Well, it's still not a very big game, so there are things that are strange with this game. We'll make another one, and maybe we'll fix this. And whereas Dungeons and Dragons is so convoluted now when it comes to if you wanted to sort of like sit down and just what is this game? If you want to pull everything together, it's a huge mass of rules.
It would be like trying to explain Star Wars to someone new in 2026.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't even
Isn't
want to try that.
No, exactly. But isn't that strange though that there are people alive today who has never known a time before Star Wars? This is
that doesn't
irrelevant to our discussion, but
that doesn't make any of us feel old.
no, exactly.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yes.
I was like 8, 9 when Star Wars came out, and the first Star Wars experience I had was the holiday special, and I survived that.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and still, it's strange also to me that there are a lot of gamers today who started with 5e and who doesn't know anything before that.
Sure.
And maybe they
Yeah.
know about 4e and
Hmm.
maybe a little bit about 3e, but the 80s, oh, and that's also indie games, small games is strong in Europe. Like
Yeah.
people
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
just do their thing and
Hmm.
they do one book, two books, and they
Right.
print it and they sell it at conventions, so they sell it on online shops and stuff like that because they care about the history of the hobby. And of course, there are that. genre in America as well. You have
Yeah.
the old school essentials. You have the
Hmm.
no wait, Osric is European actually, isn't that from Czechia? I think. But you have Swords and Wizardry, and you have also Castles and Crusades, which is not really an indie, but still it's
Yeah.
sort of like trying to capture the old history of the game.
I
And we
I
have a lot of
think
that in Europe.
I like that. I think this notion I think this notion of, publishers, indie publishers who are passionate about this story, this game, this whatever it is, and who aren't looking at it first and foremost through a corporate lens,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
right, where it's okay, we want this to keep going, so we have to churn one or two books minimally annually. Um, don't get me wrong, some of the games I most love have, have a lot of books, but honestly, they probably have a bit too many books. I would rather they do it because I'm not, I won't buy them all, right? I'll
No.
specifically buy the ones that I truly enjoy and want to keep coming back to. And I appreciate it when designers, when creators, when game companies, small or large, are really dedicated to the craft of what they provide you and to the story. And then, you're the gamer, you're the GM, you're the table, you do the rest.
Hmm.
There doesn't have to be something new constantly. Don't get me wrong, I'm being a hypocrite. Like I'm always eager for my favorite line or two to come out with something new,
Yeah.
but recognizing that it's probably not all that necessary
No,
and it
it's
might not
not.
be good.
And I think we touched on this last time. I sort of like I've had to cut down on my RPG purchases last year because I don't have any more room. I
Right,
don't
Me.
right.
have space for the
Yeah.
games.
Oh,
And still I buy 30, 40 books a year.
oh my
Uh,
God.
and
Yeah.
and and uh,
Amazing.
and my collection is about 4 or 5 thousand role-playing books, I think. And
Oh my God.
it's the paradox and the tragedy of role-playing games is that you don't need any books, but you want
That's
to
right.
buy the
That's
books.
right.
Hmm.
I love buying books and I love looking. Just the fact that Ravenloft is getting a 5e book makes me, even though I don't have any 5e books apart, no, apart from, yeah, well, Castle Ravenloft. Well, anyway, anything Ravenloft, I'm like, whoa, I'm picking this one up. And I- I- it's a completionist thing. And I think that's also a thing in, if we just look at Sweden, we don't have games with huge ranges of books. At
Okay.
least not now. There's a local game in Sweden called Eon. It's not that local. It was one of the biggest or the biggest Swedish role-playing games during the 90s and early 2000s, and it had like 20, 30, 40 books published for it. But now
Oh, wow.
it's like a lot slimmer.
Yeah.
The product lines are much slimmer. And if you look at Free League, they often but they release the core books and then one book a year maybe or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not uh, in in Sweden at least we fill that desire for new books by buying books from other publishers because we're not that
Lovely.
invested in
Right.
it has to be for Dungeons and Dragons. It has to be.
Right.
Of course, people want Dragonbane books. If they're bought into the system, they want new monsters, they want new spells, they want new this and this and this and this. But
They
it's
do.
not the people aren't clamoring as much as they are for Dungeons and Dragons books.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's
because there are
interesting.
a lot more customers that can make their voices heard. But still, if you go back to what you were talking about, for the people, at least in Sweden, at least, people aren't making decisions on publishing games based on economics
Yeah.
or
That's
commercialism.
that's that's lovely to hear. Magnus, thank you so much for coming back for part two. We're gonna have to have a
Yeah.
part three,
Oh
maybe
yeah,
with
I
the
think we need
absolutely.
a.
focus,
I think we do need
on
a part
Star
three.
Wars and
What, three,
yeah.
4, 5?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, plan on it.
If
We
you're
will,
if
yeah.
you're game for a part
I'm
three, I
game.
think we need a part three.
Yeah, we will definitely.
I'm game. I'm
But
game.
thank you
And
for
then,
coming back and talking about all
well, thank
this.
you for having me
Oh
here.
my God.
But for the third part, you're gonna have to prepare questions. Otherwise, I'll be just rambling on
We'll
for another
we'll
hour.
do
No,
our
that's the
best. I
whole
think
point.
this is
That's
yeah, but this is great. This is
Yeah,
what we
okay,
want.
that's
Yeah.
great. That's
This
that's
is what
great.
it's better than otherwise Brad and I just talk forever and it just rapidly degenerates, as
it.
our
They'd
audience
much
knows.
rather Magnus. They'd much rather hear you talk than
Much
listening
rather.
to us
Yeah.
talk.
Well, you can always do a follow-up episode where you talk about me talking
Oh,
and
that could be interesting.
and watch the listenership go pew.
oh yeah,
Right.
maybe
We'll
not.
lose both of our listeners. No.
Yeah, okay,
Th-
but then we'll schedule another
yeah, we
session.
will.
Someone. Okay,
We will for
That's
sure. Thank
awesome.
you so much. Really good to
cool
see you
seeing you
again.
and nice seeing you, Brad. And
Yes.
we speak later.
So now that we've had the interview, we can talk about that. We're going to have Magnus back because we started talking about this idea of Star Wars in Europe and
Part three will focus more in that direction.
yeah, and I think goodness gracious, I mean, you know, there's just so much more we could talk about. We could have kept going,
We could, yeah.
but we also want to be cognizant of the fact
Yeah.
that he's a wee bit ahead of us on the clock being overseas.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it's
we
very
didn't want
kind
to
of him
keep him.
taking his evenings. Magnus, thank you again. As
Yeah.
promised, we will be reaching out before long to schedule part three.
So Loon Cafe, as we skip over, before we
Yeah.
go into actual Loon Cafe, I have to ask because um you were gone for a couple days up to the northern part of the state and even a wee bit into Canada.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
did you see loons or hear loons while you were gone?
Oh, my brother and nephews invited me to spend a few nights in a cabin at a lodge literally on the border of Voyageur National Park, which is here in Minnesota.
Yes.
And so, I'm pretty familiar with like the Quetico Superior, right? That whole Boundary Waters area. But
Yes.
I'd never been here before. And this was different. So we spent this time along or indeed for a couple afternoons on Lake Kaptogama, which is not
Yes.
spelled how you would think it's spelled. Um, and and the day before that, our first night, the our first day up north, there's really nothing there, but it was such a unique experience. We drove up by way of like an hour and a half in Canada to go to the northwest angle. That's that little spike that juts out over Lake of the Woods in Minnesota. It is
Yes.
the northernmost point of the contiguous US.
Yes.
And that was very neat. That was very neat. So, yeah, so we were there and we way up north, and I was thinking about that when we were talking with Magnus, thinking, okay, like down in Stockholm, like we're north of him, or I was north of him, but like, northern Sweden, you can't go a whole lot farther north than that. So I'm just not going to say anything.
No, you really can't go any
You
further.
literally, yeah, you really can't.
So unless you are, I mean, Arctic Circle, but
Well, and
you
actually
can be
that
in the Arctic Circle in Sweden.
I was gonna say,
So
right, right. So, which would be fascinating, but we digress. Yeah.
I haven't been like in the RPG realm lately because I've just got a lot going on.
Yeah, you've been
But
really
I
busy.
will tell you that you were just joking with me as we were talking
Oh
that you saw
yeah,
me punching and it looked like I was punching on the screen, but no, I
right.
was punching on my phone confirming my installation of Starlink.
Really?
Yes, I knew I would surprise you with
Oh,
this. So,
which is great because
um,
your current internet hasn't been the ideal.
no,
Um,
you have noticed that. We have
yeah,
noticed that with our
like
with
including tonight as we're recording. Yeah.
yes. Um,
Oh,
I have because of where I am, ironically, I'm only about 30 miles outside of Milwaukee, but you would think that I am further because where I am located, one, there's no fiber available as of yet.
oh, okay.
Either
That's a little
either
surprising, actually.
yeah, either through AT&T or through the cable companies that offer fiber
Mm-hmm.
services. Um, I look to upgrade the service
Yep.
here. No upgrades available. I'm at the max.
Okay.
So um, I was looking at options and I'm like, well, ultimately I had an offer come in. I really wasn't looking. I was just like resigned to the fact that I
Yeah.
was stuck. But
Yeah.
then I had an offer come in where free installation, um,
Oh,
free hardware,
yeah.
um, a Starlink Mini that came free. So I
Uh,
could take that with me portable.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a
Mm-hmm.
portable Starlink that can go with me if
Yep.
we go somewhere.
Yep.
Um, and then my first 6 months, 30% off.
Oh,
Um,
I'm looking forward to hearing more about this once it's set up.
so I just had to confirm um, earlier tonight. I used the Starlink app to kind of, you have to go up and you
Oh,
actually
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you've ever tried it, but
Um, no,
download the
so
Starlink app if you haven't.
okay, so but because with the iPhone, like I've played with the SOS satellite feature for texting.
Yeah, no, what you should do is download the Starlink app. You don't even have to create an
Okay.
account. What it does is it tells you to hold your phone up and it'll tell you what sort of signal
Okay.
you would
How
have.
can it possibly do that beyond
It's not
it
checking the satellites, it's checking for sky
that's what
visualization.
I thought. Yeah, it's checking for okay, and probably
Yeah.
also GPS coordinates relative to where the satellites make their passes. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's so
So
interesting.
so ultimately I went around my yard trying to see where I could if I didn't, and ultimately it was
So
they're gonna
everybody
profession.
imagine Brad
So
walking
I'm
around
out there
his
with my
yard
phone,
with his
my phone
phone
in the
above his
air.
head, just yelling into the void, "Can you hear me now?" every
Yeah,
25
yeah,
seconds.
yeah, yeah. I want satellites, signal, signal.
Mm.
And ultimately
Hail to Vega.
it would say this, it would, oh, I'm gonna have to watch that tonight now that you said
Well
that.
done.
Darn you.
Yep.
Um, but in one location it says you might have 2 minutes of coverage issues per hour in this location. You might have
Oh,
4 minutes
that's
of coverage issues per
fascinating.
hour in this location. And then I went up on a step ladder toward the roof, and they're like, nope, no issues here because I have all this tree coverage where I am.
Yep. Yep.
And so I might have to run.
So they'll install
Um,
on the roof.
yeah, they're going to stall. I
Mm.
think they might actually stall in my shed.
Oh, nice.
Um,
Nice.
and because I have better coverage out there, and I have better sky coverage that way.
Right, right.
So I'm going to probably get about 400 to 600 megabit. So
Excellent.
not super fast, but
Well,
better than what I'm getting.
but no, that's fast enough for any router you're gonna have.
Yes, and I'll have battery backup in case of power outage.
No,
Um,
nice.
so I'm going to have some setup out here that will be better for me
Yeah.
because
Hey,
ultimately,
if we ever go storm chasing, you can use your
if we ever,
mini, and
that's why do you, that was honestly the allure
we've
is
never
that
done. I've never done that with you. Oh my God.
when we go camping, well, I'll have in effect a Starlink where
Right.
if we
I
have
mean,
signal issues,
granted, right, granted, that's not why one goes out to nature, but like that would be a pretty like as opposed to like a Garmin or something.
it wouldn't be
Yeah.
going out there to use, it would be going out there just to experiment, to try it. And
Yeah.
then ultimately we end up shutting, we don't shut our phones off, but we end up using minimally anyway
Yeah.
just
We're
to
gonna have to,
check in
but
with
we'll have to
family.
play with this, especially like if we road trip.
Yes.
Yep. Oh, that's oh,
So
it's ironic because I saw on Twitter today, American Airlines is going to be installing Starlink on their planes.
yeah.
Cool.
So
Well,
and
and early
ironically,
congratulations.
yeah, and ironically, the other night someone must have seen here in the area, they were like, is there something weird going on in the sky? Because they
Yeah.
saw
Why
that,
is that guy out there with
you
his
know,
phone?
those the you know how when they doing Starlink launches or whatever they do, you can see like the satellites that are in a
Yeah,
row
right.
going up.
Hmm.
Maybe it was in like the past week or so.
Yeah.
Someone saw those.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh, that's
I
Starlink. I
haven't
have video
seen
of it
those
from
yet,
Milwaukee.
which is ironic. I need to start to, we'll be up north on the Gunflint next month. I will have to watch them. We didn't see them up north this time either, but
I never got to play with Iridium. I'm going to be able to play with Starlink.
I back when so when Iridium had their huge satellites, right? The big satellites with the massive
Remember,
solar
we
collectors.
used to, yeah, we used to be able to kind of see the reflections
Yeah, you
in the dark.
they'd right, they'd like beacon for a moment and they were like unmissable. I do think actually from we went out 2 nights ago to Stargaze. Granted, the moon was like 40%, so you could see like Jupiter and Venus and some stars. But you could tell by its I think its apparent altitude, direction, and speed especially. I'm pretty sure the ISS passed over us. I've seen
Oh,
that before 2 or 3 times over the years, like
I
literally
think we
right over
saw,
my house.
I think we saw it actually when we were out bike packing a number of
I
years
don't
back.
remember, but I believe it. I believe it. It's constantly making passes, but it's a different path than I think anything else. Oh well,
The,
I mean we're a little off topic, but we're not
no,
because
no,
this
the
bears
only
on the
other thing I'll say
podcast. Yeah,
technology wise is
that
I
is really
installed
cool.
my first Wi-Fi video camera bird feeder.
Okay, that's cool. You have to send that to me.
And literally, like as an example, here's like a
Oh, look at that.
cardinal.
Brad is holding up, for those of you who can't see on an audio podcast, Brad is
Yeah.
holding up a video of Cardinal?
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
here's
Oh,
a
that's cool.
yeah. So you can see the cardinal. So and I literally you literally it takes days, if not weeks, for birds to acclimate to a bird feeder.
I didn't know that.
Um and but I put this out in what used to be my garden and it's going to be literally like I call it my mini nature preserve.
Nice.
I seeded sunflowers, prairie grass,
Oh, that's
prairie
great.
flowers,
Good for you.
and I let it, I'm in effect letting it go fallow. I'm just going to let it grow and it's going to become
Yeah.
like a natural barrier to me
Yes.
to the back.
Perfect.
And then I'm putting up bird feeders and butterfly feeders and things. I
Cool.
even threw milkweed in there.
Yeah.
Um, and I put this bird feeder up thinking it might take months for birds to come. And
All
within
of our
24 hours
all of our listeners who are like 40 or below are like,
are like,
"What?"
click.
And
Yeah.
all of our listeners who are in their 50s or 60s are like, "Go on."
Yeah. All and ultimately now I within 24 hours I have cardinals, red finches, chickadees, and even
You
a
would
few
have loved
sparrows.
the birds up on Lake Captogama. I've been to
Oh,
some pretty lovely places with birdsong, but our deck every morning and evening had the most impressive birdsong I have ever experienced anywhere in my life. Not only
oh,
did we see, like, I didn't know that we have pelicans, but they certainly liked our marina.
oh, I had a pelican here in my neighborhood, which is really odd because there's a pond.
I had no idea. Oh, you
So,
know what? I'm sorry, that brings us full circle. You asked if I saw any loons.
yes.
That's how we got started. One pair was on the lake, and you have to understand, everybody, Lake Captogama in Voyager National Park. This lake is like I don't know whatever. I don't know. It's like 10, 15 miles long. I mean, it's a massive, massive lake. I think it might be longer. Um, and so it was only one pair of loons, but we just saw all kinds of birds and heard all kinds of birds up there. It was yeah, you would have enjoyed that. It was lovely. Uh, Starlink is very cool and relevant for Loon Cafe. I'm wondering anything else on your desk, literally
No,
or
that's it for me.
figuratively?
I'm curious about you.
I have something entirely different. I've been debating this for the past couple weeks at least. It's been like just kind of gently in the back of my mind, and like every time I'm down here in the office, the home office, like especially in the evenings, I'm like, well, should I? And I just decided I'm going to, and I might email tonight. I might wait for a day or two, but I'm gonna email a few of you guys. Um, I want to play, and even though it's not really been on my mind, I think I want to play a little D&D. You got me going on that?
Interesting. Interesting.
And so because it's not nothing else is happening, and I just want to play for a bit. And summer is a great time for me to do that. And so I'm gonna email you and Aaron and Brian, and maybe tonight after we're done recording and after I produce this episode, and I'm gonna ask if anyone's interested to play. And I think we're just gonna put a handful of sessions on the calendar. And we'll just, I'm happy to GM. I don't care. I just want to play, and we'll just, whoever can make it any given time, right? We'll keep it sufficiently open that we can just all have a handful of sessions or a few sessions for fun.
Yeah, why not? Why
Everyone has
not?
PCs. We'll just, move the story forward a little bit, and then just why not?
Yeah.
Why not? So
Yeah.
that's what's been on my desk, so to speak. Um, Uh, And then a lot Pioneer has been on my mind today because my friend John texted me like, "Did you see the update about Moonbase, the real one?" And so yeah,
Oh,
I texted you earlier. I texted you, I think the recorded live stream. So Isaacman and team at NASA held an hour and a quarter. So it was basically, it was not quite an hour actual press conference time, um, talking about the updated plans and the intended three launches in 2026 to test equipment for the moon, in addition to Artemis.
oh,
And they are
nice.
getting serious. So, and they've added a website to the NASA website specifically for Moonbase.
Yeah,
Um, Pretty cool stuff. So that's been on my mind. But in terms of RPGs, I'm thinking a little D&D might be in order.
I'm game for it.
See, there you go.
I'm
So,
game for it.
all right. So, as we wrap up, uh, it's as you can tell, lots is going on with Dice in Mind. We've had some really fascinating people on, individuals, groups. We're working on scheduling through the rest of the summer as we record. And we look forward to bringing you that, as we always do. It is entirely possible that, as we've done in the past, Dice and Mind will have to play a single rerun during July or August. We're hoping not, but sometimes that's just how the summer schedules work. But we are lining up interviews, and so that's it. Lots more to come. As always, we appreciate all of you being there. We keep forgetting to say anything about this, but if you like listening to Dice in Mind, and or you have a soft spot for us, and or you're easily guilted, please like and or subscribe. Even if you don't listen, it helps us out hugely as we try to grow the podcast and extend our reach, not just for all of us, but for all of you.
Although if they don't listen, would they be hearing this?
I'm just gonna go with it, Brad. I
Okay,
just trust in the shorts. All
got it.
right. Yeah. Tell your friends, tell your frenemies, right? But it would be lovely if we could convince even half of you to help us broadcast what we're doing as we continue to get on just the most fascinating people we can imagine talking to. Thanks in advance. You know the deal. Be well, stay well. We will see you in a couple of weeks.